Everybody has had a job that they dread waking up to and going in the morning. Everybody has had a job that the best part of the day is when they get to go home, and the only reason they're there is for the pay, which in their opinion should be a bit higher than it actually is for the work that they do. In my case, this was McDonald's, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So last year, after finishing my first year of university, I headed back home to Barrie, and naturally I started to search for a summer job. But this year I wanted it to be different. I didn't want to be flipping people's burgers at McDonald's, and I didn't want to be scanning people's groceries at the local grocery store for minimum wage. I wanted to work at a summer camp. So one day I was searching the internet for jobs, and I came across one that caught my eye. It was a live-in summer camp. It was located in the middle of nowhere, about an hour from my house. And it wasn't for normal children. It was for adults, teenagers, and children with disabilities. At first I was hesitant because I had no experience ever going to a summer camp. I had no experience ever working at a summer camp. And I had no experience ever working with someone who was disabled. But I went with my gut and I applied, and I immediately had an interview. Over the course of the interview, I learned that the kind of dedication that a job like this would take, and I learned that it wasn't for everybody. I learned that the children who would be sent to the camp were the worst of the worst, as the lady had called them, and that they had been banned, kicked out of, and denied access to many other camps. I got the job, and needless to say, I accepted it. After a week of training, the campers arrived, and every week our camper assignments would change. It ranged from a group of 1 to a group of 4. It could range from an adult with autism to 3 children with PDD to someone my age who is a pathological liar. I learned a lot about the different diseases over the course of the summer. I learned about Prader-Willi disease, which I had never heard of before. It basically defines someone who becomes obsessed with food, they never get full, and they eat and eat and eat. I also learned that Tourette syndrome is nowhere near the way they make it out to be in the movies. Of course, the job did have its hard days, but it did have its ups. I managed to pull through on the days when I thought I would quit, because the good days always overpowered the bad days. I met a lot of amazing people who were mostly campers. The first one that comes to mind was a 10-year-old boy named Eric, who had autism. He was one of the shyest and quietest boys I had ever met, but the first thing he ever said to me when he came up to me was, "Do you want to know the secret to photosynthesis?" Of course, I said yes, and it was followed by half an hour long conversation when I had no idea what I was talking about. The second person that comes to mind was a 19-year-old boy named Hans, who was a pathological liar. He tried to convince me that when he was 6 years old, he dated Avril Lavigne, and that one day me and him would be married. His optimism was very inspiring. Of course, the job had its ups and downs, but in the long run, it was 110% worth it. I even went to work there over winter for a week. This opportunity taught me that trying something new and scary is always better than sticking what you're used to just because it's easy. Of course, I was hit, I was spit at, I was cursed, I was kicked many more times at the camp than I would have been working at McDonald's. But how many people working at McDonald's can say that they're going to one day be married to someone who dated Avril Lavigne? Or that they know the secret to photosynthesis because of a 10-year-old boy with autism?